How's it going, everybody? We're back for another video, and today again we're sitting in my 2004 Mercedes E55 AMG. Today's video is going to be a really interesting one because in this video my goal is to try to persuade you guys, if you're in the market for one of these, why you should buy a car that has the M113K engine. So whether it's an E55, CL55, SL55, etc., anything that utilizes the 5.4 liter supercharged V8 from Mercedes AMG. Now, the reason that I'm saying that I'm going to try to persuade you guys to this is because, in my personal opinion, and the opinion of a lot of people on the forums, is that the M113K seems to be one of the greatest Mercedes AMG engines ever made. In my opinion, it's the best engine AMG ever made, and we'll get into the other engines in a little bit. But like I said, I've owned this car now for, what is it, maybe 5 months, and I absolutely love it. I mean, if you guys have seen my previous videos of 5 things I love and 5 things I hate about this car, I would highly recommend you guys go ahead and watch them, just because it's going to give you some back or insight into the things that I love about this car and what's making me say the things that we're going to discuss right now. So the first thing I kind of wanted to get going with, and this isn't going to be a list, but I kind of want to discuss some of the history or whatnot, or like the background behind the M113K. So for any of you that don't know the engine designations, Mercedes's naturally aspirated V8 that ran from 1999 to 2006 is known as the M113, which it came in actually 3 different variations. We had the 4.3 liter, which was seen in things like the CLK 430, S430, ML 430. We also had the 5 liter version, which again, in things like the E500, S500, CLK 500, etc. And then we have the very special one, which this car has, which is the M113K, or the 5.4 liter, because it's a 5.4, not a 5.5, not like what the badge on the back 55 means. The 5.4 liter supercharged V8. So the 5.4 liter supercharged V8 made different kinds of power. In the E55, my car particularly, it made 469 horsepower originally in 2004, and it went all the way up to about 570 in the CLK DTM, which was this race car version of the CLK, which was never sold in the States, only in the other markets. But there is another version called the M155, which is the engine that the SLR McLaren used, which, by the way, I love that car. It's one of my dream cars. But we're not really going to talk about that today, because that engine, while underneath is sort of the same basis as an M113, it has so many things changed about it that you can't really put them together. So Mercedes originally moved away from the M119, which was their 5 liter V8 in the things like the S500, CL500 of the mid to late 90s, or even the earlier 90s. They moved on to the M113, which the M113 is the brother of the M112, which is the V6 version of this engine. That came in the things like E320s, ML320s, things like that, which they're essentially the same exact motor. The only difference is the M113 has 2 more cylinders on the back of it. They even look identical. If you look at them, if you put them together, and if you don't look at the back of the engine with the 2 extra cylinders, they look identical. It's the same engine, same concept, same everything, because that's what it is. And there was an M113K, which was the supercharged V6, which was utilized in cars like the C32 AMG and the SLK 32 AMG. Also in the Chrysler Crossfire SRT6, which a lot of people have to hate on that, but it's a whole different video. But we're here to talk about the M113. So the M113, like I said, is the brother or the sister to the M112. They're the same engine, just 2 more cylinders. And the M113 was actually succeeded by the M273, which is the naturally aspirated 5.5 liter that came in cars like a 2007 and up S550s, E550s, ML550s, etc. Again, that engine also has a sister engine, which is the M272, which is the V6, came in E350s, C350s, etc., those kind of things. Now, in my personal opinion, as I said, I believe the M113 And the 13K, just in general, this engine itself, the platform, is the best engine Mercedes ever made. The regular M113 makes about 302 horsepower in the E500, which it doesn't sound like a lot compared to today's standards of how some of these modern cars are, but that's a good amount of power. I mean, the engine is fantastic. You know, it has good enough power to get the car moving. It's comfortable to drive. It's not overbearing. And at the end of the day, it's not going to break the bank when the engine breaks. So I know that a lot of people are concerned with, oh, 20-year-old Mercedes, that means it's going to take a crap on me. Well, if you buy one with the M113, it probably isn't, because the M113, as I've said multiple times in this video, is bulletproof. The engine has no major defects and has no major concerns of anything. I mean, it doesn't have a timing belt. It's a timing chain motor, which, yeah, I guess you could say after like 250,000 miles, you should probably replace the guides and the timing chain, but that's not really a thing you hear about online of people having issues with it. It's not like the old school BMW V8s, the 4.4s, where they were plagued with timing chain guides. This doesn't have those issues. But while the M113 is fantastic, the M113K, which K stands for compressor or supercharged, fancy German terms, but the M113K, in my opinion, is the best engine AMG ever put in a car. And sure, you could be like, oh, but it's so basic. It's just a single overhead cam, because it is. It's one cam on each side and a timing chain. And it's basic. Think about it as like the Chevy small block of the German cars. That's literally what it is. And, you know, people love to make fun of it, especially people that have like E60 M5s, which, don't get me wrong, I love the E60 M5, but it's a complete turd. So, you know, this car gets a lot of flack. Oh, it's so basic, it's so roots, it's this, it's that. But it's still on the road. There's one online with 458,000 miles with the original engine and transmission, and it's still on the road, driving perfectly fine. And it makes the same amount of power that it did when it came out of the factory. I mean, come on. The E60 M5, I don't know if you guys have ever heard that, but you got to do rod bearings every like 50,000 miles. I mean, what? Are you kidding me? Like, that's not a minor service. That's, you pull the engine out and you tear it to the block. I mean, come on, BMW. That's at least like $10,000 job. Like, what? Unless you do it in your own garage, which if you can, more power to you. That's fantastic. But a lot of people can't, and they're going to take it to a shop and they're going to get robbed. But I don't want to talk about the M5. That's a whole different review or whole different car. I want to stick to the M113s. So my car, as I said, is a 2004 E55 AMG, and the 211 chassis came out for the 03 model year, which, quick disclaimer, I'm only going to discuss the US market because a lot of my viewers are from the States, and I kind of, you know, I live here, so I'm more, how do I say it, more kin to the US market than I am to like the European and Asian markets. But yeah, for the 03 model year, the 211 was released with the E320, the E500, and the E55 AMG. Now, in 2007, Mercedes refreshed the 211, and they kind of said bye-bye to the M113, which was a mistake, and they released the E63, which had the brand new AMG developed. Mercedes had nothing to do with this motor, because if you guys didn't know, the M113K that the AMG cars use is the engine that Mercedes made the M113 just with a supercharger on it and some other, you know, things like bigger, like better pistons, and it's bored out. But it's essentially an M113, like a regular old V8 that every Mercedes from this era had. Now, when the 6.2 came out in the 63 cars, that's the M156. That was solely developed by AMG in-house, and every single car that came out of there had the hand-built engines, which these also do. The M113 cars also do. There's a plaque on top, which I'll throw a picture in right here. The plaque states hand-built by this person, which is, you know, it's a good thing to see. It's fantastic. It kind of gives it more of a touch. But what I'm trying to say is that the M156 was solely researched and developed by AMG in-house. Mercedes had no hand in it. But the M156 is also a lot more problematic than the M113 is. Now, it's a great engine, sounds great, drives great. I love them. But if you put a 211 E55 or a 211 E63 in front of me, I'm picking the E55 every day of the week, every single day of the year. I'm not even going to think about it. There's nothing to think about. I mean, the motor is superior, the transmission is superior. That's just how it is. The M156 has the head bolt issues, which, if you guys didn't know, Mercedes, or when it was originally released, and yes, I already see the comments, not every single 63 motor is affected. There are some with 150, 200,000 miles out there that have never had head bolts or other stuff done to it, and that's great. But a majority of them did have problems. And what the problem is that the original design for the head bolts used a Torx head, which I'm going to throw in a picture right here so you guys can see what they look like. And the bolt wasn't resistant enough, because eventually, and when the coolant kept passing through, eventually it would corrode the bolt, and it would loosen the torque from the they originally torqued down to the head with the gasket. It would release that pressure, so it would start letting water through into the cylinders. And your first indication of a problem is that you would get a low coolant light, obviously because the car's burning coolant. Eventually led to Mercedes having to do a service bulletin for the engines, and a lot of them were fixed under warranty because they had the issues, while they were still in warranty. And that's going to lead us to our next issue of the M156, which is the cam adjusters. So the cam adjusters do exactly what it says. They adjust the timing or the profile of the cams, and those also had problems. And again, if it happened under warranty, great, but if it didn't, they're pretty expensive. I believe they're like $600 or $700 a piece. Yeah, that's for one adjuster, and there's 4 of them because it's a dual overhead motor, more sophisticated than the M113K, which is such a old grassroots basic single overhead cam. The M113K doesn't have that problem, guys. While the M156 is a fantastic motor, and I love the engine, I love the way it sounds, I love the way they drive, in my opinion, the M113 is superior in every single way. The M113 even makes more torque stock than the M156 does. And the M156 is a bigger motor. It's a 6.2 compared to the 5.4. I mean, and don't get me wrong, guys, as I've mentioned like 3 times already, I love that engine. I love the M156. But if you're shopping between the 211 cars and you're deciding between an E55 or an E63 of the same generation, E55 every single day. Why? Because it's a much better car. The transmission in the car is much better too. I mean, you have the 722.6 in this car, which is practically bulletproof, aside from the conductor plate, which isn't that bad of a job. It's like $350 for a kit from FCP Euro. And then we also have, in the M156 cars, you have the 722.9, which when that valve body goes bad, it's like $225, $3,000, I think, to fix. And yeah, by the way, the only place you could do it is at Mercedes because it's VIN locked to the transmission or to the car. So yeah, another benefit of buying an M156 car is that you have to deal with that. But yeah, guys, that's kind of, why I love the M113 so much. And like I said, I'm not throwing hate towards any other engine. The M112K, the supercharged V6, is just as bulletproof as the 13 because it's essentially, as I said, the same motor. But you can't beat the M113. You just can't. I think it's the best motor AMG has ever put in a car. And there's still yet to be an engine that will change my mind. I mean, the reason I haven't really talked about the modern day engines is because I've never really messed with any of them, like the twin turbo 5.5 liters or even the new 4-liter twin turbos. I've never messed with one of those. I've never even driven a car that has that engine. And yeah, I'm sure they're stupid fast and sound crazy because they do. But at the end of the day, that all those intricacies, those turbos, this, that, blah, blah, blah. Guys, that's all going to take a shit eventually. And while it's not so grassroots as the M113, my car has 181,000 miles and it's still going strong. This thing pulls like a freight train. And yeah, mine's modified. Sure, it has a bigger, has a smaller pulley, it has bigger injectors, blah, blah, blah. But that's not the point. The point is that when this motor was released, it was designed to last, not like the modern day kind of engines. And as I said, I'm not even going to get into those because I've never worked on one. I've never even driven one. So I don't want to throw hate towards anybody's car if I have never personally had experience with it. But I've had experience with the M156 6.2 natural aspirated V8. My dad's shop, there was a bunch of them that came in for those exact repairs because that's what happens. Because if they weren't originally done by the dealer back in the day, they're going to arise now. So if you're in the market for an M156, make sure the stuff's been done, just service records. But let's talk about more the 113. If you're in the market for an M113, what you're going to have to look out for is leaking valve cover gaskets, leaking oil filter housing gasket. Oh no, don't tell me I got to spend like $10 at the dealer getting the gasket. Oh no. What else? I'm going to make a full dedicated video to an owner's guide to this E55, but that's all I can really think about it that comes off the top of my head for this M113. They don't really have problems, guys. They're not really trouble motors. I mean, yeah, they're going to have problems once they age and, you know, have miles put on them, but they're not as problematic as the M156 is. But yeah, everybody, that's kind of why I wanted to make this video, is because the M113, in my opinion, truly is the best engine AMG ever put in any car. As I've said, you know, the engines that came after it, I just don't think live up to the same reputation that the M113 does. And we haven't even mentioned the aftermarket support for this thing. I mean, all you got to do is a smaller pulley and split the cooling system, which it'll cost you all probably like $800 with a tune and everything, and you're making much more power. These cars are faster than the M156 cars. They are. And you know, I'm probably gonna, somebody's in the comments right now is gonna be like, you have no idea what you're talking about. My E63 is faster than an E55. Bullshit, it is, because I know the E55s are faster. I've seen an E55 run a stock E63. Both cars stock, and the 55 destroyed it. I mean, I don't even think these cars made 469 horsepower stock. I think Mercedes lied. I think they made a lot more than that. And then, you know, whatever. But the M113 is the best engine AMG ever made. And if you guys are in the market for an AMG car, I highly recommend you look at an M113 car. Whether it's an E-Class, CL, S-Class, SL, whatever it may be, you won't go wrong with an M113K. You know, and if you go with an M156, great. I'm probably going to get one later on just because I want to experience that too. But just be careful, because those do have a lot more problems than the M113s do. So I want to thank you guys all so much for watching this video. Thank you guys all so much for supporting. Go ahead and like this video. And let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think about the M113? Am I wrong? Because I could be. Am I wrong that this is the best engine AMG ever made? If you guys think so, let me know in the comments. I'd love to debate with you guys, because realistically, nothing's going to change my mind. I'm kind of set in stone with this. I love this engine, and it's truly is the best engine AMG ever made, or AMG put in a car, because it is. Just the pros outweigh the cons of this engine. Realistically, it does. And if I missed something, please go ahead and let me know down in the comments. I don't want to give any false information, but it's from what I've seen online, it seems to me that the M113s are truly bulletproof engines, and they are. I mean, I've seen it in my dad's shop, and I've witnessed it with my own for the past 5 months. It's great. It's fantastic. Truly is. So I really hope I influence your decision, and I really hope you guys all have a fantastic day, and stick around for the next one, because we're going to be making a lot more videos about the my E55. Thank you guys. Have a great day.